All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here on the Harmless Dave channel, talking music and guitars and interviews and all kinds of good stuff. And doing what I do in real time for a few real people just like you there and like me here. Before I talk about this the big interview with Neal, Schon, and Rick Beato, a really great interview. I'm putting that out there right away. Really great interview. Check out this band. Every so often I plug something and I don't get anything for it. So this is Landfall. My friend Guy Oliver is the lead singer. Jeff Scott Soto calls him the Brazilian version of Steve Perry. Since we're going to talk Neal, Schon here and this great interview, I figured I would showcase Landfall. Their album is called Elevate, came out early this year and is still out there for your purchase and consumption. Doesn't really sound that much like Journey. These guys are kind of I don't know, it's a little bit of Mr. Big in this, I would say. There are some other influences. I know Steve Perry is a huge influence on Guy Oliver, who is a great singer and a pretty decent guy. So, again, check it out, courtesy of Frontiers Music. Now, on to this interview. First of all, I was getting deluged with messages about this. You got to watch this, Dave. Neal Schon talks about Steve Perry. He mentioned Perry a few times. You get the impression that Neal Schon would love to go back in the time machine and have it be 1982 again. He talked about Steve Perry and said, he's a singer and, singers have to keep singing. He stopped, and that's the only real criticism that he had. And it wasn't really criticism. It was just like an observation. Your vocal cords are a muscle. I've heard this before. And if you don't use them, they tend to atrophy. I know Roger Daltrey is big on that and says you got to use it or you're going to lose it. And Roger still sounds pretty good at his age. Steve Perry took a long break, and so, you lower the expectations, I guess. But the point that Neal was making throughout a bunch of this was that Perry was really good. He's really good, and there was a lot of reminiscing. You just go watch it, and I'm just giving you my little, I don't know, Cliff Notes version of what I watched. But they were speaking guitar most of the time, and I was like, hey, I need a translator over here. This guy doesn't understand what you're talking about. But it was still really entertaining. Neal Schon talks a lot about his influences, and they are many. You do get the impression that Neal would just like to jam out. He did mention the fact that it looks like they're going to actually rehearse together as a band for the upcoming tour. It would be cool if they would maybe record a new song together. Like, if just one song, just make it one really good song. Even if you need an outside writer. Maybe call up Uncle Steve and see if he's got any ideas. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. That would be awesome, even if Steve didn't sing on the track, if he did some writing. But, I don't think that's ever going to happen. What else? Neal just talked about the early days and Santana and, the fact that I think he really loves jazz fusion. He talked about Jan Hammer. Just a really good interview. And Rick Beato did a great job. These were two guys who are kind of in a zone, having a great conversation, which I love. I've had some conversations with people where I'm not just throwing questions at them. We're just having a back and forth, maybe something to get the ball rolling, and then the ball just goes wherever. And that was the case with this conversation. I do like Rick Beato a lot. I think he's really good at what he does, and he deserves the millions of subscribers that he has. the interview was conducted in this really nice theater, small theater. I don't know where it was, but the background was terrific. Neal looks good. Rick looks good. And so, this is a good way to kind of ramp up for next year. I know Neal is bored out of his mind and he probably wants to be on the road right now, but he's going to have to wait until next year. And we're already in November. So, it's not that long until Journey is back on the road. There were no gotcha questions. There weren't any questions that I would have probably asked, like the stuff between himself and Kane. This was mostly about music. And every so often, Neal kind of steered it in slightly different directions. Steve Smith was mentioned. Ross Valerie was mentioned. The old guys were mentioned. Ainsley Dunsbar. This was just a really good, thorough interview. And I came away liking Neal Schon more. I did. I know there's controversy out there. I know about relationships. I've covered it here ad nauseum, but Neal is best when he's just talking music and talking about his love for other musicians or guitars or just breaking down guitar parts. He's talking a lot about, bass playing and all these different things, which it's just if you're a music junkie, yeah, this guy is, this is where he's best. You'll listen to this and go, yeah, I'm a music junkie like Neal Schon. And, personally, he doesn't speak my language because I can't interpret or understand that language. But you could tell that he and Rick were having like some kind of musical telepathy together. And Rick was definitely fanboying. Definitely. I think it was the first time he's had an interview with Neal Schon, and good for him. He accomplished something that I don't think I'll ever do unless Neal drastically changes his mind about me as far as an interview on this little channel here. It would be cool, but I'd probably have to ask him relationship questions, and he would hate that. So just, I don't know. It's the way I am. Maybe I could keep my mouth shut and say, hey, what's your favorite guitar? As stupid questions. Whereas he and Rick, they were talking all this technical guitar jargon, and I'm an idiot, so I wouldn't really be able to keep up with those guys. I'd just be sitting there going, yeah, that's cool. I'm just nodding my head in agreement. I don't know what you just said, but I liked listening to it. And that's the kind of interview it is. So again, Rick doesn't need my help. Neal doesn't need my help. I'm just here to tell you I thought it was a terrific interview. In fact, it might have been the best interview I've ever heard with Neal Schon. Okay, or as some people pronounce it, since I'm getting beat up with pronunciations, some people say Neal Schon. Okay, and then because of the little double thing over the double dot thing over the O, Neal Schon. Okay, so Schon. However, I've never heard him give anyone a hard time if they say Sean versus Schon. But I've always said Neal. It's just certain names I've always said, even if I've said them wrong for generations, for decades, right? Phrases that I didn't interpret correctly when I was younger, and then I heard what they really meant when I got older. I mean, people just don't want to admit it, but they've probably said the wrong thing for years, and then they're corrected, and they're like, oh, wow. Someone said the other day to me, I didn't know Tainted Love was a cover song. I'm like, yeah, it's a cover from some woman from the 1960s. And you learn things. Maybe you're just not thinking about it. You're just kind of going with the flow. That's what life typically is. So if you get things wrong, just chill, man. It's not the end of the world. Anyway, great interview. Rick Beato, just totally great interview. And Neal Schon, this made me like Neal more, and it made me think of him in a different way because he's so musically charged. This guy, if his health holds up, he could do this for another 20 years. He really could. I don't know if he will, but he could go for another 20 years. He could be like those old blues guys that just they don't quit. They just keep going. All right. Landfall. If you like Journey, you might like Landfall. Guy Oliver, who could definitely sing the Journey catalog. There he is. He's really good. He's the guy in the middle to the right or left, depending on what he's got. The white part. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, right there. Okay. That's Guy. He's really good. He's a good guy. I've interviewed him like 3 or 4 times, and anytime I request an interview, he's like, "Yeah, when do you want to do it?" So he's in Brazil. Their country is in turmoil, much like the United States, but in a different way. Maybe somewhat similar. I can't remember all the details, but it's not good in Brazil. So pray for the people of Brazil and of the United States. And this is a great way to promote the Journey tour coming up, this great interview between Neal and Rick Beato. And if you're asking me when I'm going to have Neal Schon on here, Schon, I don't know when. It could be no, it's probably never going to happen. So it would take an act of God for that to occur. Same thing with Steve Perry. I'd love to have Steve Perry on. I have interviewed Dean Castronovo and also Jeff Scott Soto. That's about as close as I'm going to get to the Journey franchise. And Dean's the drummer, so that's pretty good. That's not bad. All right. Anyway, thanks for being here. God bless you. All right. God bless America. God bless you. And God bless Neal and Rick and everybody. And see you soon.